There are situations in the beef operation when we need to feed a limited amount of some particular feed, and we need something that we can utilize that will allow us to simply put that feed out in a large quantity and not have to come in and feed it every day or, quote, hand feed. An example of that is if we needed a small amount of a protein supplement, rather than going out once a day and giving that to animals, is there something that we can use to put with that where we can put a large quantity out and not have to go out and hand feed every day? And the answer to that question is yes. There are some products available that will limit the intake of an animal. So what we want to do is just discuss some of those. The first approach is using something that will bulk up a ration. This is where some hay, maybe using some cottonseed hulls, something of this nature that is bulky, even straw could be used. And what we're doing here is simply providing something that doesn't provide maybe a lot of energy, but it does provide some bulk, and consequently the animals will be filling up on that and eating only a limited amount of the feed ingredient that we're trying to get in a limited quantity. The difficulty we have a lot of times is getting the mixture just right so they're getting the proper amount of the ingredient that we're wanting to limit feeds. The idea is that the animals get full before they finish too much of that feed that we're trying to limit. Another ingredient that is used by many folks in trying to limit feed is salt. This seems to work reasonably well, but there are some limitations that must be considered. First off, if we're going to be feeding in a metal feeder, we need to realize that salt will cause rusting, and the life of that feeder will be decreased tremendously. It needs to be in a wooden trough or wooden feeder if we possibly could. Well, what else may be a problem or a limiting factor in using salt? If we don't have adequate water available, there is a possibility of actually having salt poisoning. What we're looking at is having an adequate supply of water that the animal can use to filter all that excess salt out through the kidneys and out through the urine. And again, it is possible to use salt as a limiter. We just need to know that there are some limitations. Well, let's say that we are going to use salt. How do we mix that salt into that ration? Well, how much salt should we use? A thumb rule is to use 1/10 of a pound of salt per 100 pounds of body weight. Let's use an example here to illustrate how this works. Let's say we've got a 500-pound calf that we want to give 2 pounds of grain per head per day. If we will mix 1/10 of a pound of salt times 5, because we have a 500-pound calf, that's a half a pound of salt, mix that with that 2 pounds of feed. So in fact, what we're doing is feeding that calf 2.5 pounds of feed, and that's basically all that it will want to consume. And in that mixture, a half a pound of that will be salt. The other 2 pounds of it will be the feed that we were trying to limit. So this is an easy way to get at putting feed out and not worry about the animal consuming too much. But we do strongly recommend that you monitor that consumption and adjust the salt either up or down so that you are staying at the desired level. Many of the commercial feed companies have feed limiters that they use in their feeds. You know, it might be simpler to simply purchase one of those rather than trying to mix up something on your home farm. What you've got to do is realize that limiting that intake does require some extra management, maybe over and above what you normally would have been doing. But feed limiters do work. If you would like some additional information regarding the use of salt or other products for limiting feed intake, contact your local extension agent.